Good day, great day. This is For Another Day podcast. I am Rick. I am here today on Friday, February the 11th, 2022. We are continuing the month of February to be all about relationships. Imagine that. This is hashtag Date Your Mate month. So we are going to continue today to dive in looking at oil changes versus engine overhauls in our relationships. A study that came out that talks about clinginess, long working hours, and lack of personal space as the three most common relationship issues, according to a recent study. And we'll take some time for some questions and maybe a little bit of coffee. So let's dive in. So, oftentimes in the counseling office, I have been asked, how bad do you think this is, Rick? How bad is our relationship? Can we fix it? As a marriage and family therapist, I'm a little bit jaded. I'm there to try and go ahead and help the relationship. It takes a lot of work, especially when it's gotten to the point where it hasn't been worked on or maintained whatsoever. And so I've used this analogy of an oil change versus an engine overhaul for a relationship. When it comes to our cars, we have a regular scheduled maintenance that we're supposed to do. Every 3,000 or so miles, we're supposed to go get the oil changed in our cars. And it's one of those things that just becomes, how vigilant are you? Do you wait right up until you get to that 3,000 mark? Do you come in under the 3,000 mark because you're that prepared and that ready for it? Is it because it's been over the 3 months and it's not even the mileage now? You're just counting some other factor that it's been time and that it needs to happen. Or is it something more? Is it something like, it's been 5,000 miles, but I just haven't quite gotten to it yet? I know I need to. There's that little sticker on the windshield. I know I need to go and get this taken care of, but I just haven't made time for it. So oftentimes when it comes to counseling a couple, they'll report, oh, well, we've done premarital before we got married. Or we went ahead and we've read a book together to try to help us. Matter of fact, we took that online love language thing, and mine is words of affirmation and hers is physical touch. Okay, so they've had some sort of understanding there. I've had other ones that are like, he won't say or do anything, so I pulled him into the session. And it's like, okay. Now it comes to the point of, it's gotten so bad that I don't know if we can continue. And this is the point here where I come to ask questions that it's like, has that engine light come on that tells you, something is definitely wrong with the car and with the engine. I need to go take it to an experienced technician, an experienced mechanic that can go ahead and diagnose what's happening. They can go ahead and tell me what it's going to take to fix it and give me an estimate. And it's going to take time to go ahead and fix it. And in the end, it might not still be the same. It might still sound different. Yet others, unfortunately others, let that little red light go on until the car doesn't work anymore. The car stops and abruptly it makes you pull over onto the side of the road, stranded and not knowing what to do, who to call, or what it's going to take to fix it, if it's even possible to fix it. As the steam rises from the engine or the engine is seized and you have this smell that you can smell of a burnt engine. It's that realization of, I should have done something earlier. And so that's where I really want to encourage you to do something earlier about a relationship, even if it's in the earliest stages of a relationship, that romantic relationship where you're just infatuated with so much about the other person that it doesn't matter what's going on in the world around you. You've got the other person. It's time to put things in place early on. The problem is our culture does not do that. Oftentimes in our own health, we wait until something's broke before we fix it. You know, taking supplements to help our basic nutrition and health are such a new concept that still is not acceptable. And so for ourselves, we look at that same mindset towards a relationship. Are we willing to go ahead and take on a regularly scheduled maintenance? Or are we just going to wait until it breaks? Early on, as a marriage and family therapist, you have these lofty goals. And I had seminar upon seminar spelled out for how to go ahead and help marriages, how to have that regular engine oil change for them. And 2 would come, or 5 would come, or none would come. But instead, I would get the calls in my office that would say, Rick, how soon can we get in to see you because it's so bad right now? And so sometimes it would take weeks to get in because of being so busy. But that's where I want to offer you through this podcast, especially during this month of February, ideas to save your relationship, ideas to nurture your relationship, ideas that aren't just ideas from me, but are actions by you. Just pick one. Pick one to do this week and see what a difference it makes. Rick, we haven't had a date night in like 5 years. Well, maybe it's time to start having a date night. Oftentimes I recommend to clients, try to have a monthly date night in the busyness, especially if you have a family or a young family, to make sure that you are treating each other as a couple as a priority and not just the children. More times than not, you hear, we're just going to stay together for the sake of the children. And a lot of times I just shake my head no. I shake my head no because when you look at it, what are you modeling for your child? It's not that I'm advocating for divorce here. It's not that I'm advocating for counseling here. I'm advocating, what are you going to model for that child about this is what a relationship is and should be? So then when they're off to college and mom and dad divorce, well, everything that I've based my premises on for a relationship is null and void. It's not, that wasn't healthy. What is healthy? What should I be looking for? I don't know. And that's why I have so many 20-something-year-olds questioning right now, questioning dating, questioning a relationship, questioning they can't find anyone even on a dating app. But what does it take to truly date your mate, to truly find out what's most important to them, and you do it? Because in this complementary relationship where your strengths might be their weaknesses and their weaknesses might be your strengths, you're there to take each other and to help each other in this relationship. Dating your mate isn't just about going out to dinner or the movies or to a theater production. Dating your mate is an everyday occurrence. Dating your mate is having dinner together at home by yourselves or with 3 kids. Dating your mate is squeezing their hand gently and looking into their eyes without words even expressed to show, I love you. I care about you. I want to be with you. Now, if these ideas are sounding foreign to you, well, it's time to fix it. One of my most popular books when I used to have an office, a brick and mortar office, that I used to lend out was 1001 Ways to Say I Love You. Because sometimes the guys just wouldn't get it. They weren't creative enough to truly go outside of themselves. But unfortunately or fortunately now, because of the internet, we don't need that. We don't need a book to tell us anymore. We can just Google it and search it on Yahoo. We can look to see and find ways to say, I love you. Finding different ways to say, I love you. Finding new ways to say, I love you. So during this hashtag Date Your Mate month, with Valentine's coming up, remember, it's not just about one day. It's not just about an anniversary day. It's about dating your mate each and every day. Those expressions that you can give to them that says, I love you. Real dark chocolate and pretzel protein bars that both taste great and nourish us. Nugo offers so many types of bars and cookies for your enjoyment, but I always stick with the best. Plus, it's gluten-free. Click the link below to order yours today. So in a continuation of Date Your Mate month, I found a journal article. It was on scipost.org on December 10th, 2021. The title reads, Clinginess, long working hours, and lack of personal space are 3 of the most common relationship issues. Well, so let's dive into this article and see what is happening here. So this is out of the journal called Evolutionary Psychology. It was originally published February 2nd, 2021. And it suggests that the top difficulties faced by couples in long-term relationships are clinginess, long working hours, and lack of personal time and space. The study conducted among men and women from Greece and China also revealed that while men were more likely to report bad sex as a source of relationship strain, women were more likely to report clinginess. So in a previous study that was done, they mapped out 78 different relationship difficulties. That was done in a study. This was done in Greece for both those that were single and in relationships. They hoped that they would be able to build on this relationship, which that's what this current study is about. They recruited an online sample of 604 Greek-speaking participants and 799 Chinese-speaking participants. All the respondents reported currently being in a relationship. 32% of the Greek sample and 34% of the Chinese sample were married. Now, the participants were shown this list of 78 relationship issues identified in the previous study and were asked to indicate the extent each issue caused them difficulties in keeping their current relationship intact. So the researchers went ahead and took those 78 issues and clumped and grouped them into 13 wider domains: fading enthusiasm, infidelity, bad sex, non monogamy, violence and addiction, lack of personal time and space, long working hours, clinginess, character issues, children, social circle issues, lack of compromising, and lack of effort. While none of the factors were endorsed by a majority of the participants, over 65% of the participants endorsed at least one of the sources of strain. More than 1/5 of the participants endorsed 4 or more. So nearly a third of the participants, 30%, reported their own clinginess as a source of relationship strain. So remember, this isn't the opposite partner being clingy. This is their own self-reported clinginess as a source of relationship strain. Almost a quarter, 23%, reported lack of personal time and space. Now, of course, this is coming through a time of pandemic, lockdowns, and we know that reported number probably would even increased even more so during the height of the pandemic. And also around 22% reported long working hours as a point of stress. Now, the study authors considered that these responses, from an evolutionary perspective, they were looking at it as long-term mating strategies offer fitness benefits, since greater investments in offspring helps children reach reproductive age and pass on your genes. Partner monitoring mechanisms like jealousy and clinginess should be advantageous in that they minimize non-monogamy and keep fitness benefits intact. But partner monitoring can cause relationship strain. For example, if a partner doesn't react well to being accused of infidelity or feels overwhelmed by a partner's clinginess, this might explain why many couples report clinginess and lack of personal space as significant sources of strain. As for the emergence of long working hours as an important issue for couples, this could reflect just a contemporary society requiring workers to dedicate many more hours to the job rather than dedicating hours to the relationship. So I'd love to hear your comments down below. Whether you consider clinginess, long working hours, and lack of personal space as a common relationship issue for you, or what is a common relationship issue for you? What does affect your relationship that in yourself you could be working on to make the relationship better? That's right. Not what your spouse does or your partner does, not what they do wrong or even do right. I'm asking you, what are you doing in the relationship? What are you doing in the relationship that needs work on? What are you doing right in the relationship? All considerations there to make Date Your Mate Month the best month of the year. Whenever you need a cup of coffee that's always smooth and never bitter, try Cameron's Coffee. It's the closest I've personally found to the perfect roast. There are so many flavors to choose, but I always seem to reach for the breakfast blend. And for those busy weekday mornings, try the EcoPods. Click the link below to order yours today. Their social context is that from socialization through drinking. So if you don't want to find someone that leans that way towards socialization with drinking, then probably not a great thing to meet someone at a bar. Same thing with a church. You're going to tend to meet churchy type people at a church. So if you're not looking for a churchy or religious type person, or maybe you are, then church may or may not be the place for you. And unfortunately, social apps, dating apps, have boiled it down to physical attractiveness is the only way to initially start a conversation. Am I attracted to you? Are you a left swipe or a right swipe? Or we're based on these personality indicators and it realizes that we're a match. I don't have the answer for you. I don't have a dating site for you to go to. But it's one of those that if you take the opportunities to set standards for yourself and stick to those standards, once the line is drawn in the sand, you don't step over them, so that when you find a potential suitor or date, that you're not just giving up or giving in because you're so lonely. My partner is abusive. What should I do? Well, this opens up a whole can of worms, of course. There's so many different types of abuse that are out there: physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, neglect. Most oftentimes, when working with clients that have experienced domestic abuse, there's a cycle, and it's hard to break that cycle from leaving and coming back and leaving and coming back, and out of fear of leaving and what would happen or what could happen to the children. Seek help. Seek professional help, not just help from friends or family. Seek professional help. If it's severe enough, get out, find a shelter, find a court, find a victim's assistance office in your county court system to be able to help you through the process, if it's filing a protective order or whatever it might be. But seek the help. There's hotlines that you can call to find out more information. Seek the help, though. It's so needed, and we don't want this cycle to perpetuate, which unfortunately did rise during the pandemic. So many people were stuck at home that the abuse cycles spiraled out of control. He doesn't say I love you anymore. Well, there's a lot to go with that. A lot to go with actions. What type of actions are happening in the relationship? Are words just not his strong suit? Is it more through actions than words? Are his actions diminished because you stop them? But he doesn't say, I love you. Do you need to hear that on a daily basis? Every single morning when you wake up, so that you're reassured in your own personality that it's going to be okay? Are you a little bit too much clinginess? But he doesn't say, I love you anymore. Well, seek out counseling. Seek out a way to make that change happen. And if you aren't sure about how to get him into the office, I might do that on a future podcast. Some of my tips and techniques and tricks to get a reluctant spouse or partner into counseling. I'll share that at a future one. But just remember, there's more than one way to say I love you, and to recognize those ways. Those positives don't often get logged as easily as the negatives do. How do I keep picking dates that ghost me? Well, unfortunately, society has now come to this term of ghosting. I really think it's been perpetuated by corporate employers. And you're going to go, what? Corporate employers now, you put in applications, you don't hear a peep back, not even a thank you for your application, it's being processed sometimes. Not even a you've been narrowed down but were rejected. They have balked away from commenting because we've been a culture now that cannot take criticism or critique or face-to-face confrontation. And so I hear it. I hear it from young adults. He broke up with me over text. Can you believe that, Rick? He broke up with me. That's what you do in middle school. Yeah. Because we can't deal with the confrontation. We're not strong enough in our communication skills to be able to sit down with the other person and say, you know what? At the beginning, it was good and I was still learning about you, but I'm just not feeling it anymore. They don't want to have to justify their actions. But why? Why? What made you fall out of love with me? I don't know. That's a cop-out right there, if I ever heard one. So this ghosting effect that's happened where you might go on a few dates and then it's just crickets and you don't hear anything. You'll text them, call them, there's nothing. I'm going to say this right now. Men, step up. It's time to raise the bar. It's time to date as men. And it's time to have a resolve in a relationship that is truly about going ahead and perpetuating a relationship. That relationship should come before Xbox. That relationship should come before a lot of other things that gets placed in the way of the relationship. I hear way too often from women, he doesn't even try. Guys, if you're not willing to do even 20% in a dating relationship, get out of the boat, stop dating. It's ridiculous. There are women out there that truly want a relationship and you're just crowding the boat. You can be like, wow, Rick, that's harsh. It's time for it to stop. It's time for it to change. It's time for us to actually stop hiding behind our phones and start really becoming a culture, a society. I had this comment too. How soon is too soon? I have no idea what this person was saying. It could have so many different connotations. But if you're asking, then you don't know. If you're asking, that means you're going to get 20 different opinions from 20 different people. Really boil it down. What are you looking for in a relationship? What are you looking for a future? And are you ready for it? That might be part of it too. Well, shout out today to our listeners. We've got listeners from the Ukraine and even from South Africa that have been listening to the podcast. So thank you very much. I always appreciate the um, the viewership and the clicks and the thumbs up and the subscribes and especially the comments. This last section, it was all because of you. It was all because of questions that y'all had that I wanted to go ahead and share with you today. So, once again, thank you for joining For Another Day podcast, brought to you every Tuesday and Friday by our various sponsors. I encourage you, please click on those sponsors in the show notes, shop a little bit on Amazon and at the other stores that we have. Every little bit helps, and it does keep this podcast going. I want to leave you with a famous quote from Domenico Estrada. To know when to go away and when to come closer is the key to any lasting relationships. Peace to you this day.